welcome. I'd like to ask those of you who have a seat to please remain seated until the ceremony is completed. Ladies and gentlemen, President Drew Faust and Secretary of the Navy Ray Mabus.
Welcome, everyone. Secretary Mabus, distinguished guests, Harvard students, colleagues, and friends. Like so many of you, I have looked forward to this day with anticipation and with pride. That pride extends especially to our students and our alumni who wear the uniform of the several branches of the United States Armed Forces. It extends as well to members of our community who have worked to broaden the avenues for more men and women here and elsewhere to serve their country. Today, I am pleased to join Secretary Mabus in announcing the renewal of Harvard's historic relationship with the Naval Reserve Officers Training Corps. That relationship dates back 85 years to 1926, when Harvard became one of the 6 original participating institutions in Navy ROTC. And in fact, our gathering place today here in this house holds historic significance for both the Navy and for Harvard. It's well known that this house was home to a series of Harvard presidents over more than 60 years. It's less well known that for several years in the 1940s, in the throes of World War II, Harvard President James Bryant Conant and his family packed their belongings and moved out of this house so that it could be used round the clock as a venue for the Navy V-12 college training program. Today, in this same house, we sign an agreement to restore the full and formal recognition of the Naval ROTC at Harvard. Our renewed relationship affirms the vital role that the members of our armed forces play in serving the nation and securing our freedoms. It recognizes military service as an honorable and admirable calling, a powerful expression of an individual citizen's commitment to contribute to the common good. At the same time, our renewed relationship affirms the commitment embodied in Congress's historic December vote to achieve greater inclusiveness within the ranks of the military, consonant with the ideals of our democracy and the best traditions of the armed services. It underscores the importance that all of us place on opportunity and inclusion, on opening pathways for students to pursue their ambitions, to cultivate their capacities for leadership, and to lead lives of value to others. Over decades, and in their own distinctive ways, both the American military and American higher education have been engines of inclusion and wellsprings of service. The relationship we renew today marks progress in that common pursuit. Under our new agreement, effective with the scheduled end of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, we will again have a regular and durable presence of Navy training programs on our campus. ROTC officers will return to Harvard under the leadership of a director of Naval ROTC and supporting staff. Our classrooms and athletic facilities will be available for use in ROTC activities. Harvard will resume financial responsibility for costs of our students' full participation in the highly regarded NROTC consortium that makes its principal home down the road at MIT. These and other steps reflect the Navy's expressed desires in regard to the renewal of Harvard's formal ties with the Navy, ROTC. And they reflect our own desire to welcome ROTC back to Harvard in a way that will ensure a supportive environment for what I hope will be a growing number of students who choose to participate. Harvard takes great pride in being the institution of higher education whose alumni include more Medal of Honor recipients than any college or university other than the service academies. There are today more than 200 students studying on our campus who are veterans, many of the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And during my 3 commencement seasons as Harvard's president, I've had the honor of attending the ROTC commissioning ceremonies for our graduates. We look forward with the Navy and with the other branches of the armed services to extending and enriching that long tradition of service. For today, I want to thank Secretary Mabus for his leadership and initiative. It's been a privilege to work with him to bring us to this historic day. And I want to thank many members of our own community who have been voices for the importance of embracing the opportunity for military service and the importance of greater inclusiveness in pursuit of that opportunity. I want to thank the faculty colleagues and others who have given me thoughtful advice in recent months about charting a course for Harvard's renewed relationship with ROTC. I'm particularly grateful to Evelyn Hammonds, Dean of Harvard College, who is here with us today, and to Robert Giuliano, General Counsel. They have worked especially hard to make this moment a reality. And most of all, I want to thank the Harvard students, past, present, and future, who devote themselves to the nation's service and who embodies qualities of leadership and courage, of devotion and sacrifice that merit our deep gratitude and respect. At our ROTC commissioning ceremony 2 years ago, I quoted something that our honored guest that day, General David Petraeus, once said about military service. "The most powerful tool any soldier carries," he said, "is not his weapon, but his mind." Those words have stayed very much in my own mind, especially in anticipating this day. They speak to the bond between education and service, between learning and doing, between what universities have to offer and what our nation counts on us to provide. And they are words that we will keep in mind as we pursue what I hope will be equally productive discussions with the other services towards similar ends. Let me close not with words of mine, but of a graduate of the Harvard College class of 2010. She was commissioned last spring as a second lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps. Her name is Shauna Lee Sinat. She wrote to me last summer, and I wanted to share some of her thoughts with you. "I was hesitant to come to Harvard at first," she wrote, "and I thought I would receive less than a warm welcome when I walked around the yard in uniform. But as soon as I got here, I felt at home. I developed a deeper understanding of the need for a military presence on Harvard's campus, and I was able to provide a unique perspective to my fellow students, many of whom will someday find themselves making policy decisions about our nation's military men and women. As a scholar of war," she wrote to me, "you understand the critical relationship that has existed between Harvard and the military since the university's founding, and the need to cultivate this mutually beneficial relationship into the future. I am pleased that all of us here have had the opportunity to play a part in cultivating that relationship, and I am very pleased to welcome and to introduce the person who has been a driving force in renewing that relationship, the Secretary of the Navy, the Honorable Ray Mabus."
To my wonderful partner in this pretty amazing endeavor, President Faust, without whose efforts and persistence today would not have come. To the Harvard community, and particularly to those of you in uniform here today. Just on a very personal note, I'm always glad to be back here. I came to Harvard Law School immediately after I left active duty in the United States Navy. And the critical thinking skills that I learned in both those places and the notion of service that I learned in both those institutions have followed me for the last 3.5 decades of my life and my career. Today, we formally reestablish Naval ROTC at Harvard. And I say reestablish because, as President Faust pointed out, Harvard was one of the first 6 schools to have ROTC beginning in 1926. And really, even though for the last 40 years there has been no formal connection between Harvard and the military, there has been a commitment by Harvard to educating both our active duty military and our veterans who have served so honorably. We have had connections. It's just nice to make those connections formal once again. This relationship, this now renewed formal relationship, has benefited both of us. It has benefited the United States Navy and Marine Corps, but I think it's also benefited and enriched Harvard University. 17 Harvard graduates are Medal of Honor recipients. 17. As President Faust said, trailing only West Point and Annapolis in number of Medal of Honor recipients. People like Leonard Wood, leader of the Rough Riders, who became the only doctor to ever rise to become Chief of Staff of the Army. Theodore Roosevelt, his fellow Rough Rider, winner of the Nobel Prize, President of the United States. And Theodore Roosevelt Jr., the only general officer who went ashore in the first wave at D-Day in Normandy. Those are indicative of the types of leaders that Harvard produces, of the types of military leaders that have been here, that are here today, and who will be here formally now in the future. The stories of so many Harvard graduates are the stories of the American military. Former Marine Captain Seth Moulton and current Marine Captain Barrett Bradstreet, both the class of 2001, who did remarkable work in restoring the Iraqi army to professionalism and respect. Former Navy Lieutenant Henry Nussum, who served as a surface warfare officer at the same time he participated in 2 Olympics as a rower. Today, Harvard and the military will re-embark on a journey that will serve to create many more officers like the ones I've just mentioned. I cannot stress enough how important that is to our military and how important that is to our nation. Today would not have come without Drew Faust. It also would not have come without the Assistant Secretary of the Navy, Juan Garcia, who is another Harvard Law School alumnus. You never know where we will pop up. In order to best serve our nation, the military has to strive to be reflective of the nation it protects. And it does not serve our country well if any part of our society does not share in the honor of its defense. The NROTC units we have around the country today produce great officers. They come from different geographies, different backgrounds. They bring different perspectives. But too many undergraduate programs in too many top universities do not have a formal tie to the United States through ROTC. And too many undergraduates leave college today with too little knowledge of what the American military means and who the American military really is. And these relationships matter. They matter in a lot of ways. Harvard is the oldest school in the United States. I didn't realize quite how old Harvard was until I was a student here and went to an exhibition at one of the museums, and it had an honorary degree granted to Benjamin Franklin. And Harvard was already 150 years old when that happened. It still is one of the finest institutions of higher learning anywhere in the world. It and so many other of our top universities produce the leadership of this country in business, in law, in government, in science, in technology. And it should produce the leadership in the military of this country. The education of leaders is about exposure to new ideas, exposure to varied viewpoints, and exposure to a full range of possibilities open to graduates. NROTC's return to Harvard is good for Harvard, it's good for the Navy, and it's good for our country. Together, Harvard and the United States Navy have today made a decision to enrich the experience open to Harvard students, to make the military better, to make our country far stronger. Because with this exposure comes understanding, and through understanding comes true strength. Thank y'all very much.
I would like to invite Secretary Garcia, Dean Hammonds, Admiral Ferguson, and our General Counsel, Robert Giuliano, to join us up here for the signing, please.